EVA-3 will start out at the joint airlock once again with crew members Drew Feustel and Mike Fincke. Drew will first work on relocating that power cable bag that he temp stowed at the end of EVA-1 back to the Russian FGB. Mike will work on retrieving a medium-sized bag with a crew lock bag inside of it, and he will set up shop on the port side of the truss. I'm sorry, on the port side of the FGB. Mike will then install a gap spanner that will help with the translation later in the EVA. And the two crew members will work together to remove 5 pieces of multi-layer insulation, or MLI, that's currently protecting the install locations for the PDGF and the VSC. Once this MLI is removed, they will bundle it together with a wire tie and then use a few additional wire ties to secure it to a handrail in the Russian segment. This MLI will probably be jettisoned on a future Russian EVA. Both crew members will then translate back to the airlock to assist one another with retrieving the PDGF and its frame. As you can see, it's a fairly large piece of equipment, so they will both be tethered to it and kind of inchworm it back to its install location on the port side of the FGB. Once they get it soft docked, they will tighten the 3 feet that hold the PDGF in place. Then they will work on installing the video signal conditioner. This VSC has a single bolt, and then they will route 3 cables that are installed on the PDGF to this video signal conditioner. Then they will retrieve and route a 4th cable, which was temporarily stowed by a previous shuttle crew. Once that's installed, once all the cables are installed, they will install a hard protective cover on top of the VSC. So at this point in time that we will start work on installing the Y jumpers, Mike will first retrieve the port jumper, and then he will make his way up to the forward zenith side of node 1 into an area we call the rat's nest, because there are so many cables inside there. He will demate an existing cable from the rat's nest and temp stow this Y jumper. Then he will translate to node 1 aft nadir, where he will demate another existing connector and temp stow the Y jumper. At this point in time, Drew will start his work on the PMA-1 FGB interface, where he will demate a connector from the FGB, mate it to this new Y jumper, and then he will also demate a second connector which will route down to the PDGF. Once Drew is complete with his work, he will give Mike a go to start making his connections. Mike will mate the rat's nest cable to one end of the Y jumper. He will then secure the cable with wire ties to make sure it doesn't interfere with translation paths. And then he will translate back down to node 1 nadir aft again, where he will mate up the second leg of the Y jumper. At this point in time, we've completed work on the port side of the Y jumper install. The ground will start verifying the connections we made, and we'll also start putting inhibits in place for the starboard side of these Y jumpers. This task should take about 45 minutes, so during that time we will finish up the PDGF install by routing the final 1553 data cable. This cable routes from connectors coming off of the PDGF, and they go over to node 3. Once complete with that work, and once we verify that the ground has the inhibits in place for the starboard Y jumper install, Mike will make his way with the starboard cable back up to the rat's nest area once again, this time on the starboard side. He will demate an existing rat's nest cable and temp stow his Y jumper. Then he will translate to node 1 aft nadir, where he will demate an existing cable and temp stow his Y jumper. And then Drew will start his work once again on the PMA-1 FGB interface, where he will demate an FGB cable that he hooks up to his Y jumper. And then he'll demate a second cable from the FGB, which will route down to the PDGF. Just like on the starboard side, once Drew is done with his work, he'll give Mike the go. Mike will start making his connections. He'll first hook up the rat's nest cable to the Y jumper, wire tie the cable down, and then make his way to the node 1 nadir aft, where he'll finish up the Y jumper install task. Once complete, both crew members will translate back over to the PDGF install site. Mike will work on cleaning up the work site, and Drew will take photos of the FGB thrusters, which are located right there, as well as the newly installed PDGF. Both crew members will then translate back to the airlock, and that will complete EVA-3.